Very strong velocities are showing up with this storm. Here is the velocity signature. Bright greens going strong from west to east, right up against bright reds east to west. That's the tornado vortex signature. And let's see if I can take a slice through this, and we'll see how high up, get an estimate of how high up that debris is going. So if I do that, we're seeing here that lavender debris showing up, about 4,000 or 5,000 feet above the ground is how high it's showing up. So here is the tornado. We're exaggerating somewhat the tilt by this kind of a display, but this is the tornado signature coming up. The updraft of the parent thunderstorm, the storm top itself, it's a huge storm for New England, 52,000 feet, 10 miles tall, with a leaning big column of what I haven't caught that biggest hail, but big hail that is falling out of this particular storm. A dangerous storm in progress. The big hail core is off immediately to the east, so the sequence of events you're likely to get here in Massachusetts is some very large hail, and then suddenly, as the hail ends, you suddenly go into what storm chasers call the bear's cage, where you suddenly come out of the hail and right into the rotation of the parent thunderstorm. So this is an exceedingly dangerous situation, with the possibility of people ahead of the storm not being able to see it coming. So dangerous situation, Carl.
Greg, I just had a sinking feeling looking at this, because this is very similar to what we saw in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. This is probably not going to be the same kind of tornado, but it certainly is the same kind of situation. When you see that ball like that, let's explain to people, when you see a debris ball, that means that is stuff that has been hit and is now being drawn into the tornado.
Yeah, there's only two ways that the radar really gets a return that intense, that lavender pink color. It's either large hail, and that's not the place in the storm where it happens. It's big pieces of debris that are so solid that the radar return comes back off of that and returns a very high percentage of its power. So that's why we get those circular debris balls. Of course, the tornado is pretty circular, and as Carl says, we've seen that way too many times this spring. We've seen it in Tuscaloosa, we've seen it in Joplin, we've seen it in many other occasions, St. Louis, you name it, with all of these violent tornadoes we've had this year. I said once before this spring, back on April 27th, that I had seen more debris balls that day than I had seen my entire career, and it really hasn't let up. We're seeing it again today, so this is a scary spring that we're in, Carl.
Yeah, very a troubling situation. Again, a tornado has come through Springfield, Massachusetts. Now that storm, as it continues off towards the east, is actually more well formed than it was when we saw the tornado on video. Maybe we can go back to graphics 14. Greg, this is about as awful of a picture on radar as you're ever going to see.
Yeah, it really is. The whole big parent thunderstorm spiraling around, and then the updraft of the storm rotates here. That concentrates and gets concentrated in and spins up the tornado that is showing up as that debris ball. Now, let me take a little bit of a measurement here. We may be seeing, find out how wide this is. That lavender core here is about 1 mile wide, so this is no longer a tiny little tornado, or if it ever was. It's certainly a very large circulation that we're seeing at this point, with velocities that are pretty scary showing up here in the Doppler radar, greens and reds touching. At this point, I'm seeing still about 85 miles per hour, but I'm up at an altitude here of about 4,000 feet. And so a pretty strong circulation, and definitely picking up debris high enough that we're seeing that at 4,000 to 5,000 feet above the ground.
Greg, can we zoom in on this radar so we can get a sense of what the towns are that are in the way of this tornado?
I was trying that. There we go. I've zoomed in close enough now that this is going to come very close to Fiskdale. Here is Fiskdale, the tornado going to come very close to that. So at this point, and these radar images come in just a moment or two late. So the tornado right at this point is very close to Fiskdale. At this time, which was about 2 minutes ago, the tornado was about 2.5 miles west-southwest of Fiskdale. So it's going to go very close to that.
Greg, this is just south of the Mass Pike, just south of I-90, now just to the west of 84. So think about the interchange of 84 and I-90, the Mass Pike there. That's where this tornado is headed. Sturbridge, also East Brimfield, East Brimfield Lake in that area. That is where this large and dangerous tornado is now heading.
Yeah, I'm sliding over toward where it's heading, so it's heading close to Sturbridge, perhaps a little to the north of that, although it could take a bit of a right turn. If it makes a turn to go down its edge of its precipitation and hail, it could go to Southbridge. And then beyond that, if it goes straight east, it could be going to Oxford, Massachusetts. So dangerous tornado in progress. New updated scan there showing very well-defined lavender debris ball there. Tornado is in that and heading east now across southern tier counties of Massachusetts.
All right, so if you're just joining us now, very dangerous situation. We've had a tornado already in Springfield, Massachusetts. You're looking at 2 supercell thunderstorms now making their way through central parts of Massachusetts. We've gotten reports of damage, and we have seen most recently, very unfortunately, a debris ball, which indicates a large, powerful tornado that has already done some damage, and now the debris from that damage is being drawn up into the system itself. That's the southernmost storm that's traveling right along the Mass Pike, closing in on the intersection of the Mass Pike and 84 in southern Massachusetts. These storms generally moving towards the east at about 30 miles an hour, and it looks like Boston is going to be in for at least some very rough weather, if not something worse, Greg.
Yeah, and this tornado now is located about 4 miles north of Holland. It's within a mile or two of Fiskdale, heading toward the Sturbridge area. So within minutes, Fiskdale and Sturbridge, you are going to be under threat from this tornado. Now, in terms of the Boston area, let me take a zoom out here. I'm working the radar a little bit off scene here. Boston is about 1 hour now away from the storm that's to the north. That storm may slide a little bit to the south of Boston, but Worcester, on the other hand, the northern tornado warning, Worcester is about 15 to 20 minutes away from a possible tornado. Here as we take a look, and I'll zoom in a little bit more on these 2 rotations. You can certainly see the stronger the 2 rotations is with the southern storm, but Worcester is about 15 to 20 minutes away from rotation on the northern storm that's about back in here. So here is their precipitation patterns that show the most well-defined circulation. So Worcester, this northern storm is headed your way, and the Sturbridge area, the tornado confirmed heading in your direction.
All right, I want to go now to Jerry Highland. He is a general manager of a radio station in the Springfield area, I believe. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Carl. How you doing?
Good. Can you tell us about what you saw and heard there?
Yes, we were sitting here in the office, and they had forecasted possible tornadoes, but we get that rarely, and not like our friends to the south and Midwest, unfortunately. But all of a sudden it got very dark, very windy, thought it might be just another thunderstorm, but then receptionist started saying, "Oh my gosh, I see debris flying," ran towards her, and all of a sudden saw some what looked like tar coming off the roof and circular motion, and it just got quicker and quicker and quicker, which we're not used to. And then the Court Square, which is right in the center of town, or the city, probably 7,500-year-old trees, there's probably half a dozen of them that were overturned, ripped out of the ground. One of them actually looks like it was thrown about 6 feet, probably about a 2.5 foot, 3 foot tree. It was pretty intense and scary. We're not used to that up here.
Yeah, Jerry, I was going to say, I was born in Boston, spent some years there, and I don't recall there being tornado sirens in that area.
No, there are not. It truly is visual and very reactionary. Not any warning at all.
Did you have there certainly was a tornado warning at the time,
correct.
But you were just you weren't aware of that until it was on you, basically?
We were aware of the warning, but in terms of the forecast, but
right.
In terms of the actual event, not at all, other than visually seeing it out the window and realizing, uh-oh, we better head towards the center of the building.
Do you have any sense of the extent of the damage in that area?
No, other than as I look down Main Street, it looks like a possible building might have knocked over. There's several ambulances down the street, and police are rerouting traffic. I talked to my daughters who are out in my home at East Long Meadow, and it went probably about an eighth of a mile from there, and there's some trees down and that. But again, it seemed very, very focused on its path.
And I know this came in right at the beginning of rush hour. What's rush hour like there in Springfield? Is it often very crowded?
No, it's not a bad commuting town. It's not like an Atlanta or a Boston or New York. It's a light rush. So that's a fortunate thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and it all happened very quickly, yes?
It was here, and it was literally gone in minutes. And the damage, we have a couple of, it's not a big city, but there's a couple of high-rises, and they evacuated those. Sounds like precautionary. Maybe they'll be inspecting them to ensure that they're structurally sound. But other than that, it was very fast, and some intense damage relative to our usual thunderstorms, but I'm sure nothing like the awful experiences of Joplin and some of the other places you were speaking of.
All right, Jerry Highland, WHYN General Manager, thank you so much for your time. We've got some new pictures right now of some of the damage there in the Springfield area. Greg, already we've seen damage in some areas. Looks like some pretty serious damage.
Yeah, trees, power poles that have been knocked down there. The good news at that point is I see those homes that still have the roofs intact. So sometimes the presence of tall trees will take a lot of the momentum, grab a lot of the, here's a tree that has been uprooted, but you see, aside from some of the trees perhaps falling on that, the big canopies of the trees sometimes will take a lot of the energy and absorb a lot of the energy, so that if the tree doesn't fall on the building, sometimes you're safe in these tornadoes that are of the EF1 category. So we have at least not totally leveled these buildings at this point. They're going to suffer some damage, probably from roofing damage, but the tall tree canopies have pulled in. Here's another big root ball that's been totally uprooted out of the ground, and the entire big old tree is leaning over here to the right. So pretty strong winds have come across this area.
All right, Greg, let's
we have a new radar also that has come in.
I was going to say, let's go back to the radar, because we've still got just an incredible, very upsetting actually, radar presentation with this supercell to the south.
Yeah, a new update on the radar has come in. We continue to see that lavender debris ball has moved just a little bit to the east. Still a tornado warning to the north, where the hook echo is getting a little bit better defined. So let's take a look at the velocities once again, then we'll zoom in and have a look at the locations. This one still, it has this rotation, but it's largely aloft, not nearly such strong rotation at the ground or at the lowest radar scan as we're seeing down with a storm to the south, and the one that has the debris ball that has done the damage in Springfield. So that is perilously close to Fiskdale, bearing down on Sturbridge, Massachusetts, with the very strong rotation showing up associated with that debris ball.
Greg, so people know these roads right in here. This is 84 that this debris ball is now coming into, and it's now south of the Mass Pike. That's 90 right there. So that is the area where this very large and damaging tornado is now coming in, and no doubt, Greg, it's doing some terrible things right now.
Yes, it still contains debris, still with velocities suggesting that it's still causing damage, and it's going to go very close to Sturbridge. It will continue on there, then right toward the Oxford area at its current direction of motion. So dangerous storm, dangerous tornado continues to be in progress according to our Doppler radars. Now, taking a look, in case a tornado does form on the northern storm, see if we can take a look here at some of the locations that may be in danger there. So Spencer, or areas just to the north of Spencer, and then over toward the Worcester area would be the next target. So areas near Spencer and Worcester from the northern storm are in danger.
And Greg, if we can go back to that southern storm again, I just want to talk to folks a little bit about some of the areas that are in the path of the storm. It looks like that large and damaging tornado, very, very serious tornado, now just to the east of Interstate 84, now just about on top of Sturbridge. So that's going to be coming into Route 169, possibly close to Southbridge as well, maybe just to the north of Southbridge, then towards Route 31. This is to the south of 20 and the Mass Pike, and then making its way towards the Granite Reservoir, and then perhaps eventually towards Oxford and Hodges, and then 395 south of the Mass Pike. This is all moving towards the east now, Greg, 35 miles an hour about?
Probably a little faster than that, 35, in the 35 to 40 range. I'm losing my voice here at the moment, but just to the past to the east, it looks as if the tornado has made a direct hit on Sturbridge. So live pictures of damage coming in. Now we're seeing some building, probably the facades, those top that you're seeing there, building facades that have collapsed. That presumably was West Springfield. Now it has gone right across Sturbridge, continues off to the east, will go just to the north of Southbridge, and then heading toward Oxford in Massachusetts.